Remember that record that you bought me like 2 years ago? Well, I just remembered that it's sitting in the closet. So I called you up just to tell you I've been meaning to listen to that. I've been meaning to listen to that. Why don't you come over and talk about it? Ooh, why don't you come over and talk about it?
And the best way that you could take the L is to just move on, and just put out whatever music you want. Like when I heard somebody said that he was like doing this collab album with Party Next Door, and it's like, okay, well just do that then. Instead of like all this plotting and scheming and we will win game 2 and all this stuff. It's like, dude, nobody cares anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's going to January 6th, the Super Bowl. Anyways, hi, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to I've been meaning to listen to that, to the podcast where we go through albums we've been meaning to listen to and use as a conduit to learn about each other and our guests. I'm Andrew Ambrose Lee.
I'm Stenley Phillipe.
And I'm John Butts.
And we got a fantastic guest here. He's the host of the commentary podcast, Derapy. And let's talk about Childish Gambino. Let's talk about him. He is one of my favorite artists. He was like one of the first artists I fell in love with, like as a music fan. Like I was a big Community fan. I was a big Deryk comedy fan. And the second he started, back in like 2009, I started like when Community season 1 premiered, I was just immediately struck by him, and I fell in love with his work, and I've been following ever since. But let's go around the horn and talk about your history with Childish Gambino, where you are with him now, all that such.
So my history with Childish Gambino is I don't know if you did like some research on me, if there's like a specific reason you picked me for this, because I've often been compared to Childish Gambino or Donald Glover. I actually put out an entire episode about how Yoshinoa is probably almost certainly a Drake diss, and I kind of told this anecdote in the beginning of it. I'm not going to spoil it here, but basically some people mistook me for Donald Glover. And I just kind of rolled with it. That's happened multiple times. Not people mistaking me, but just kind of comparing me to him just because we have similar demeanor, similar interests. Like I also think I'm like a kind of versatile person as far as like the things I'm interested in. I sing, I write raps, I think I'm funny, and white women love me. So like, I just think that we kind of, I don't know. I just always, I tend to lean more towards artists that I can like kind of see myself identifying as. Tyler, the Creator, has always been like this alternative kind of out there black guy that's doing his own thing unapologetically. And Childish Gambino, like I definitely, ever since, I would say my first introduction to him was probably like around that Bonfire time. So we're talking 2011, 2012-ish. And every album he's put out since then, I've been a fan of. I saw him live once at Bonnaroo in 2019. I was kind of blackout drunk, but that's a different story. Regardless, I was there, and I've just I followed pretty much his whole career, watched all of Atlanta, watched even that bad Star Wars movie he was in. I've been there for all of it. So yeah, been a long time fan, and excited to talk about more of his work today.
Yeah, and first of all, that movie wasn't bad. Solo was good.
He was good in it. Like
yeah.
He was good in it. I don't think it was that great of a movie, but that's not the show.
The thing about the problem of it is the fun of Han Solo is you don't know anything about him. And then the thing that you get where he got his name from, of like, you're by yourself, Han Solo. It's just like kind of like, but like they did keep the allure of Lando though. They did did not reveal anything about him really, which was like the fun of it. Yeah, Stenley, what's your take on Donald?
Yeah, I think Deryk, what you said like resonated a lot, because there's a group of artists that just like they understand how to express themselves, as I struggle to express myself right now. They understand how to express themselves in ways that are not expected from, that packaging, and I think that was one of the things that drew me to like a Kanye when he started, for example, is, there was almost this like anticipation of, okay, well, you are a rapper, so therefore you have to use these lyrics and like make sure you have this back origin story. And he was just like, no, like I can do it this way and express myself in a particular way and use music as a vehicle to connect. And in Childish, like he was always the outsider. Even with this album feels like he is so outside of everything. Even with this like kind of, soft Drake diss, it's like almost like no one even cared or mentioned it or thought about it, or you know what I mean? And yet, like if you look back at the last 15 years, I mean, there's maybe 3, maybe 4, artists that have produced art at the level of Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Like it's very, very, very small list. And so for me, I just appreciate the art, like the ability for him to actually be like, you know what? I don't need to be an artist that gets all the acclaim. Although he had that moment at the BET Awards where he's just like, oh, it's wild that I have more BET Awards than Will Smith and less than Sam Smith.
Yeah, so funny.
It's just so good. So yeah, I'm a fan. I love him.
Yeah, my take on that is he's quiet, like, the Chappell Roan thing of like, I'm your artist's favorite artist. I think he has a strong case for that for a lot of people. He has a very strong case of like, when you listen to the Gilger radio shows, you had all these celebrities drop in, like from Chris Rock to Ayo Edebiri to Billie Eilish to all these people, like Tyler the Creator, all these folks who are just like, well, he didn't like go as far as them, but like in terms of just like mainstream, but he put that seed in them, and then we're seeing like he helped Migos like kind of blow up in a way. Like Miles Morales is based off him, like him in Community. Wingstop has Lemon Pepper Wet, like
get our crickets.
Yeah, he talked about in an interview in like 2013 about how Kanye talked about the glass ceiling for rappers, where like people don't give him opportunities because they see him as a rapper, even though he's proven himself to be way more than that. And then Donald Glover's superpower is like he can go further than Kanye because no one thinks of him as a rapper, Yeah. And like no one thinks of him as what I like about him and like growing up alongside him, even though we're miles and miles and like, apart and like our experiences are so different. I really appreciate how honest and messy he is, like showing us the growing process, showing us like his beliefs that he put out there so like strongly, but then fell on his face. Like, whoops, that was wrong. Like, whoops, that was the wrong perspective to have about that. And then like growing from that, I think that's what I appreciate. So
yeah, can I just quickly just mention, because we talked about Drake before, I don't know if we kept it in or not, but if we keep it in,
we kept the part about him like January 16th, the Super Bowl. Like,
perfect. Yeah. So the gripe that a lot of us have about Drake is that there's a time where Drake, just like Childish, was so vulnerable. And so he was exposing himself to us. And then he just kind of decided, you know what, I can just go into this one lane and just be this pop star, superstar, but also surface level MC. Whereas Childish, like, he never really, and maybe because he didn't hit the commercial numbers that Drake did, but he never commercialized himself to the point where it's just like, all right, we get it. Like, you're just going to do what everybody else does. He like brought, Young Thug into like his world, even though they're both from Atlanta, right? Like they both have a Atlanta experience. But we think of Young Thug, we think of Atlanta as a particular way, and we think of Childish as a different way, but they're both Atlanta. They're both Black. They're both that experience. And so I think what was cool about Childish is that he didn't feel like he needed to compromise his Blackness in order to fit into a Black experience that America wanted to commodify. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Again, one more point and then I'll move on. But like also all of the things you're saying, Stenley, let's not forget that this year he has 16 Emmy nominations and a Grammy nomination.
Huge.
And like
huge.
The music is
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And we'll talk about, that's like what I want to talk about with the themes. But Well, there's that, and then there's also music. I would say is his weakest sort of like link. You know, people like the music side of it. People love the music, and like I would say, like This Is America is the one time he like really hit it big. But you know, I think his writing and his acting and like you know his like kind of creating shows is his real talent. But he could sing like Stevie Wonder. He could sing like Prince. He could sing like Funkadelic. You know, all that stuff.
No, I would argue that his singing is the most underrated talent that he has. Like, for sure. It's like no matter how many years we hear him singing, like with unbelievable range, and just like we're not just talking about like holding a tune. I'm talking like I'm listening to this guy singing, and I'm just like, is this the thing that he's the best at? But he doesn't even treat it that way. Like that's what's
he doesn't
so crazy.
do it enough.
like when I listen to so my favorite song for a really long time, the song I listened to more than any other song was Final Church at the end of Atavista. And it's funny because when he dropped the original version of it in 2020, and then like that was, I think it was called, wait, hold on, I know this. It was called 5349 at the time. I was like, this 5349 song is crazy. It's all I ever play. And then people would be like, why are you always playing that song? What's it even called? And I'm like, I don't, you'd have to, it doesn't make sense. Listen, it's good. All right. Just listen to it. And I just think that, Atavista was one of those albums, by the way, that like kind of had to grow on me a little bit, like the same way that I felt about Igor when I first heard it, because it wasn't like what I wanted. And when you grow up, eventually you realize that like it doesn't really matter what you want. You have to like meet the artists where they are, and you like have to embrace it the way that they intend you to embrace it. And now I look back at Atavista and I have like a very binary view of how I enjoy and appreciate albums. And I'm just like, if I enjoy 9 out of 11 of these songs, then to me that's a B plus, that's an A minus album. That's a great album. When I look back at Atavista, I listened to his entire discography today, by the way, to prepare for this.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just what I do. I take this shit seriously. What can I say? I was listening back to that and I was just like, this discography, this entire catalog is even more underrated than people realize. People mainly when they think about his music, they think about This Is America, they think about Redbone, they think about, you know, Bonfire, 3005. But there's actually just like a lot of depth to almost every album. Like Baby Boy on Awaken My Love, nobody that I know has ever said anything about that song, and it's one of my favorite songs of all time. And it's just crazy that he has these gems that people don't even talk about because they're just him singing, and people don't even know that he's a singer like that, and it just blows my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about you, John? What's your history? Like, I want to like build on that. That's really amazing stuff, and I want to ask you about like what you gleaned listening to the whole discography. But John, let's turn to John first. Like, what's your history with Childish Gambino?
Hovey with glasses, wheezy but geeky, girls in the lobby
trying to beat me.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I've been here
Words
for it all
that
too.
I made up.
Yeah, I've been on the Childish Gambino wave since. You know, similarly to everybody on the call, everybody on the pod since maybe 2009, 2010. It's nuts because I feel like everyone knew him from Community and from 30 Rock. And when I look back, I feel like this was right as the blog era was starting to slow down, but I was still very much so scouring the internet for new artists, and Cul-de-sac by Childish Gambino came up on some random blog site, and the artwork was really intricate and interesting, and I loved just like listening to new music and finding new artists. And Cul-de-sac was this rap project by this nerdy dude, so nerdy sounding just like me when I speak, and talking about light-skinned girls, put it in the video, dark-skinned hoes, you can put it in the video, Asian girls, you can put it in the video. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, we ubiquitous out here. We love it all. I'm down with that. And like, just kind of with the quirky, funny punchlines too, very much so rooted in what it means to write raps, but just in a different way. I felt very validating finding Cul-de-sac, but then you start to read a little bit more and I'm like, wait a second. This is Childish Gambino is Donald Glover. So, and oh yeah, Deryk comedy. I remember that one video about bro, like I remember that from YouTube. And that was just very strange and weird. And oh yeah, I love 30 Rock, Werewolf Bar Mitzvah, spooky, scary. Wolves becoming men becoming wolves. It's like this guy is tied to so much already. And that was like 2010, 2011 in 30 Rock writer's room. And at that point, I think when I was really, really tapped in, he hadn't even released EP yet. But once it was like, EP's coming out in a couple months, and then you got All the Shine and all of them, such good songs. I mean, I don't know how much
Gambino is a mastermind.
It's a pass of time. I don't know how well they've aged. I know there's been a lot of conversation about like his discovery in being able to put himself out there in that way and be fallible and be the nerd who maybe is not getting all the girls, but is like very confident in his ability. That was just an energy that I really like grasped onto at the time. And you move forward and watch his trajectory and watch him kind of struggle with being accepted in the hip hop world. But also simultaneously in Hollywood, he's like, I'm on Community, but this feels like a plateau. Like mom said, why you quit a good job? Dad said, do your thing. Don't stop. Like I got more to accomplish. And then we get Atlanta. We get, I know you said that maybe music wasn't his strong suit, but if you think about who he was kind of positioning himself next to after camp, the Royalty mixtape had Schoolboy Q, Ab-Soul, Danny Brown. Like there were talks about Childish Gambino potentially joining TDE. Like this is TDE. Kendrick, the Scissors of the world, that record label that is doing all the things that it's doing in 2024. This is who he was against and collaborating with at that period of time, just in the rap world, before we had Atlanta, because of the internet. I mean, you all did the episode, but think about how expansive and intricate that world was. And the first time I'd ever read a screenplay that was next to an album and supposed to be a part of an experience, and watching him do this kind of performance art in interviews wearing the same, I'm like, this man is taking this shit to new levels. He's going to different places that I've never, ever seen. And, similar to Deryk and what Stenley said, this was kind of like the first time, or your favorite rapper's favorite rapper, being able to have your kind of underlings that people are aspiring to be. I very much so saw myself in that Childish Gambino, Donald Glover category as well, just trying to be multifaceted and do music and write. So I got to wrap this up, but I hold him to a very high esteem. While these later efforts, Activista or 31520, I want to say was the original title, and Bando Stone, I think maybe the pandemic kind of dimmed my light on following or whatever it was. I haven't tapped in that same way as that early pre-pandemic Childish Gambino, the slightly post This Is America, but he's one of my favorite artists, and I think we can continue to learn a lot from his journey prior and what he does next, because he's still got so much time and so much to bring to the masses. So big fan of Childish Gambino / Donald Glover.
That's interesting. So anyways, let's let's talk. Oh, by the way, Deryk, do you, when you say something funny, do you call it Deryk comedy?
No, well, it's funny that when you guys were referencing that, I was just like, wow, what a crazy coincidence. I never even really thought about how much. So like my, I feel like how do I say this? I feel young. I feel young. But maybe I just discovered. Okay, I'm not going to be like, how old are you fuckers? But I started high school in 2011, so my first introduction to Childish Gambino was the rapper, and I think it's really cool that you guys have all these experiences with him. Community, 30 Rock, Deryk comedy. I've seen like very, very short little bits here and there on YouTube, but I've never actually watched these shows all the way through. My first introduction was like, play this for my cousin. Now he can't even think straight. So it is really interesting to hear you guys talk about like his trajectory and him branching out, because for me, I started with like, oh, this guy's a great rapper. Oh, wait, he can sing too. Oh, wait, he can write a show and direct too and all this stuff. So it's like, for me, I had like a completely different experience with him. And I really appreciate what was just said about like how your standard for him is really high, because this was just, I promise this is just a coincidence when you were messaging me, Andrew, about how much you like Bando Stone and how was like one of your favorite albums of the year. I just like stopped responding to you, not because I didn't want to engage generally, because obviously I'm here, but I was just thinking like, yeah, I don't feel that way. And I was like, I'm not trying to kill the vibe before I even meet these people. But for me, I hold artists to like their own standard, if that makes sense. So my brother and I used to have these like very in-depth conversations about every single episode of Derapy that I would put out, like back when 15, 20 people were listening to it. And we would open every conversation with like, I'm not gonna be like, rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. What did you like? What did you not like? I'm just like, is this on par, above par, or below par of the last episode of the podcast I put out? And that's where our conversation would start. And that feels like a nice way to like be critical of yourself without being like too harsh or mean for no reason, or without like glazing yourself too much unnecessarily. Like if you just tell somebody, oh, that's an above par episode, you're like, oh, so that's good. But you're not like, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever heard. So when I listen to Bando Stone, for example, I have like the same approach. Is this like on par, above par, below par of what I'm used to hearing? And for me, it was below, which doesn't make it bad.
Yeah, sure.
It doesn't make it bad. But for me, I'm just like, that makes me less likely to go back and listen to this as opposed to something like Because the Internet, which is like one of my favorite rap albums ever, or Awaken My Love, which is just simply like a good soul project from somebody that's really good at singing, or even Out of Vista, which grew on me, but also just has like higher peaks than most of any other albums that he's made. I think like Final Church and The Violence and To Be Hunted and Sweet Bang, like these are like some of the better songs he's ever made. And I'm much more likely to go back and listen to that than like, Advocate or whatever. So, I just think it's really interesting when we talk about somebody that's so talented. I'm seeing a lot of similar conversations about Kendrick Lamar's new album right now. Some people are calling it a mixtape solely because they're like not satisfied with it conceptually, which I think is just absurd. It's like you're classifying it. You're choosing to classify it a certain way because it's not what you expected. And I just think that's weird. It's kind of like how Lil Dicky drops this project and he's calling it an album, but I'm calling it a soundtrack because I don't think it's that good. So I just think it's interesting the perspective that people take when they listen to albums, when they listen to projects based on what their perspective or expectations are. Because for me, I listen to Bando Stone in the New World and I'm like, is this even an album or is this just a soundtrack? Yeah. I don't know if you guys have those same thoughts.
And I think that's the challenge and frustration with this project and maybe why it didn't land. I think it might beyond just like Childish Gambino fans who want their like, the guy they like to like do well and stuff, is because this is a soundtrack to a movie that doesn't exist. It isn't released yet, or potentially doesn't exist. Maybe it doesn't exist.
Might not exist.
It might not exist. Yeah. and it's surrounding a tour that got cut off, because of an injury or something like that. So this album is a lot about, I want to end the Childish Gambino experiment, the character, in a way that fans will find satisfying. But like in a lot of his work, real life cuts in and messes things up. And I think the two times he successfully pulled off an ending, quote unquote, is his finals episodes of Community. I think was a very satisfying end to Troy Barnes. But he's coming back apparently, and then the end of Atlanta, which is like perfect like television ending. That's exactly what you want. You can imagine the characters going on after that, but you're happy about the journey you went through and all that such. And also, I really like the Mr. and Mrs. Smith ending. I watched that show twice. It's great. But
I gotta watch that show.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. But yeah, I think so that's the chat. I think that's what he ran into, and the idea of him doing SNL and being on, having the hit song, and then having what's it called, like Lando, and then having the Atlanta
that movie on Prime Video with
Guava.
Guava.
He had 5 things going on at the same time, and that was the year his father died. And that and then he was planning on releasing a final album, and then the pandemic happened, and it's I think Donald, as an artist, has kind of in a way kind of cracked the human experience in a weird way, in a way that I find interesting, of wherever there's light and beauty and joy and fun, there's darkness and sadness and death right around the corner. And he was watching, his son was being born, and then the George Floyd stuff was happening around it. And it's I think what he's wrestling with this album and with his career is how do you live and how do you die? It's and maybe it's not explicit in the content of the album, but it's very present in his attitude, in his perspective, in his output. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of good stuff here. So a couple of things. One, what Deryk said about artistry and the ranking of things, I like that a lot. Like that idea of is it better or not better or worse, but is it above, the same, or below? And I think on the one hand, if we think about just Childish in this album, it's hard to separate the intention of it, right? It is intentioned or is planned out as a soundtrack to a movie that's going to come out. And so it's almost you can't really judge the soundtrack until you've seen the movie, because a lot of it is going to be contextualized through the scenes of said movie, right? So if you're going to actually think about what the artist wanted, well, then you have to kind of wait until you see the artist's vision. But if you want to think about what we want, and I think the philosophy that we're trying to wrestle here is art about the consumption of the fanatics or the consumers of the art, or is it about the production by said artists, right? Who dictates the pace? Because you said oh, no, this album is not an album, it's a soundtrack, or this is a mixtape because we all think that Kendrick's got a bigger, better project coming around the corner, so we're labeling it as a mixtape. Is it, do we get the right to do that? Or does Kendrick tell us it's an album and then we have to consume it as such?
Okay, so I have a very strong opinion about that. I think that we should just take it for what it is. I think it would be unfair to think that you can't judge this because it's supposed to accompany something that isn't here. So for example, Lil Dicky puts out his soundtrack, but it comes out after the show and the show's pretty much done. So you can fully judge that. That's fully fair. But let's say that he did what Childish Gambino just did. He put out a soundtrack to a movie that isn't out, right? And it would be crazy if anybody were to be how do you feel about this collection of songs? And you're well, I can't fully judge it because it's accompanying something that's not here. Because it's well, then what's the point? Why is it even out then if we can't be critical of it? So for me, I'm we have to take it for what it is and nothing, or what's out and nothing else. So because the internet comes out, it comes out with a screenplay. Now, I think it's appropriate to read the screenplay because it is out. The album's out, the screenplay's out. You should, but it also works on its own, and I think that's why it's so great because most people don't know the screenplay exists and still enjoy the album, which to me is the sign of a very good album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also when you read the screenplay, I read it in hopes that it would solve the answers to my questions about the album, and it doesn't. It does a little bit, but it doesn't. It adds more questions, which is good art. That's what good art does. It kind of leads to more questions. It leads you to wrestle with things, makes you think about things differently, wrestle with the philosophical questions, wrestle with the times, all that such. Yeah. So the thing, there's that meme of the guy going Kanye could release an album of farts, or just close your eyes and imagine the movie.
Yeah.
Close your eyes and imagine the movie, and then fans will go, "Bro, I see it." There's that. But I like the idea of using your imagination in the context of this album, using your imagination to what is being scored here. What is this supposed to be what scene is playing while this song is happening, you know what I mean? And then I think of it as if there's no movie released as of now, and I think Childish Gambino, he talks a lot about why he's doing anything is to follow the fun. It's a very Derapy philosophy. I think he got it from that. Derapian philosophy. But he's following the fun, and he wants to make experiences, and he wants the process to be fun, because why do it if the process isn't fun? Why do it for someone else's approval if someone else's approval is fickle? Why do that if
it's literally the reason why I went to school for journalism and I don't work for the news, because it's not fun. It's not, it doesn't feel real to me. The idea of coming up with stories or finding them and interviewing people and getting sources and coming up with these graphics and writing these scripts for something that I might not care about.
And it sounds
that's bad.
Fun in 2024, making an album that has an accompanying trailer in the year of 2024 in a post-Trump America, saying that a movie is coming and marketing it as a soundtrack, and then not releasing a movie because misinformation is all there is, and because this might be because of the internet part 2, which just a little bit more, I don't know, personal uplifting affect, I guess, but but still existing in this world where you don't know what is factual. I don't know if I'm holding out hope for a movie. I think, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, this is the cast party to Childish Gambino, right?
Yeah,
the play is over, and we're just kind of reveling in the remnants of it all.
We don't care about the party. We just want to dance. That's what I said every time after my cast party in Mulan. That's what I said. When I was in high school theater and it was all white people playing Chinese people. That was great.
I've been in that same production, Andrew.
yeah, you were there too. Let's go into themes. Let's talk about themes of this project. What are your takeaways from this?
That there's a movie coming out. I can't wait to see it.
My takeaway is that I feel kind of just let down, because I'm trying to do what you were talking about with using my imagination, and part of me, I guess selfishly, I can't think of a better word, just feels like I shouldn't have to do that. Maybe if you're releasing a soundtrack for a movie, maybe the movie should just come out first. Maybe I shouldn't have to listen to 10 hours of a Dissect podcast so I can figure out what you might be trying to say. Maybe I should be able to enjoy it on its own. It's so funny when I listen to when people talk about like, oh, this Lil Dicky soundtrack is bad, and then people will counter with
Really
like, well, you have to
fixated on
watch
this
the
guy.
show, and then it's not. No, I'm really big. Well, because to me, I feel like they kind of fall in the exact same realm because it's a guy who does, and it's so funny because Donald Glover himself would probably hate the comparison. But if you don't want the comparison, then release the fucking movie. To me, it's just like the counter of, well, trust me, bro, it'll make sense when the movie comes out. To me, it's just like, why would you even put yourself in that position? I think there's actually like a snippet or a bit or an interlude of from like a Logic album. I think it's Under Pressure or Tits. I don't know why I said Tits. It's The Incredible True Story. It's an acronym. I didn't just say Tits for no reason. Where he's like, release, it's like, don't release a single for an album that's not finished. It's like releasing a trailer for a movie that's not finished. And it sounded like pretentious and completely random at a time. And now we are literally living in that reality. The trailer's out. We don't even know if the movie's coming or not. And it's kind of like, again, the only reason because the internet gets away with it is because it still works as a functioning rap album on its own without the actual movie that it's based on. And I just feel like I'm leaning towards this movie's not coming. Like that's just where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. You know what I mean? Like I know I referenced it, but honestly, like if the movie never comes out, like for me, I think this project works. Not that you have to like it or love it or whatever. Because I don't. It's not my favorite Childish Gambino album, but it works as an album. Like it's still very much an album with really great songs, some singles, a lot of cool pop melodies, some influential or various musical influences fused into all of it, really good raps. And I think one of the themes here is like him continuously opening up his world, but also kind of saying like my world is all that matters, right? It's like that give and take of, hey, you all have the chance to learn who I am. And who I am is someone that doesn't have to be part of your reality to exist in my own. And I think a lot of the artists that are up there, like they struggle with that. Kendrick doesn't. Kendrick is a person that's like, I can live in my space and be good. I can also live in your space and be good, but I don't have to be in either or under your kind of command. Whereas someone like a Kanye, like he needs to be in both. And when he's not, it's like it bites at him because it's like, how dare you ignore me in your space? You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the big themes here as he's stepping away from Childish Gambino. It's saying like, I'm stepping away from the expectation that I need to be part of whatever is happening in pop culture to be relevant because I don't. Like I'm fucking my wife. You know what I mean?
I'm busy.
Like you're fucking these hoes and fucking my wife. Like that's him. And so I think that's a big theme in this project. Not fucking his wife, but like just like the idea.
That's also one of my favorite bars from the entire album. Yeah. I was like, this guy. I feel like we're in the same place still. It's great.
It's also like the embracing of just, and this might be too like surfacey a read, but embracing fatherhood without a father, you know what I mean? And like trying to carve out, not just, I don't think they had a bad relationship. They seemed like they had a great relationship, but kind of carve a new world for his lineage, like what is to come for them, and try to make it a little more lighty, a little bit more less daunting to look forward to. There will be challenges and there will be those gritty, you thought the dance party was coming, but then it's the segue into the real song of Got to Be, it's just very much so carving out this pathway, reveling in fatherhood and children as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think because the internet, we've seen him make we've seen him make that comedy video and think it's funny in front of everybody. It was viral. It was very viral. Like one of the first, like him and Bo Burnham are like the YouTuber, like ground zero guys, basically, and like those guys have really interesting
and the spelling bee one.
Yeah. Really interesting like relationships to the internet, and it's all recorded and permanent in a way that it wasn't. I think it's like part of it is like growing in a healthier masculinity too. I think growing and seeing the progress into a healthy masculinity. Because I would say camp is pre-incel material. You know, like it's when I was in high school, I don't necessarily like relate to all of it, but I kind of related to that anger and that, you know, where's my home? Like, and some of the racial dysphoria. I never wanted to be like white, but I was just like, I hated feeling invisible. And I felt like I had something inside of me that was amazing and beautiful. And I wanted to share. If only people saw it, only people gave me a chance and stuff. And so there's a lot of like anger there. And there's like, and in the internet age, that feeling can get co-opted by the Andrew Tates of the world. You know, that can get co-opted by, yeah, exactly. You know, just like the Jordan Peterson is like, these young men, they're having a hard time. And like, they gotta like,
I'm so glad I found Childish Gambino before Andrew Tate.
right. Yeah,
That's
exactly. But like he expressed how he felt and he doesn't feel that way anymore. You know, I think that's what this album is like. This is why I'm happy with this as a finale for the Childish Gambino character, is because now his life is based in like reciprocal love, where he's able to feel joy and embrace cringe and embrace himself. Like, and that's why he could play the old songs without that being a representation of who he is anymore. You know, like who he is. He could like, you know, the Paramore plays Misery Business. They stopped playing it for a little bit because the backlash of like, oh, this is a misogynistic song. And then before every show, she's like, okay, guys, obviously the song, you know, has some problematic stuff in it, but you know, we're adults here. Let's have fun. And I think there's like some of that here, you know. I think
there's something super beautiful about that. Like the way that Tyler will still play Yonkers even though he claims to hate the song. Childish Gambino, he'll still perform Bonfire even though like some parts of the song are gross. But like being able to embrace that is the same reason I won't delete old podcast episodes no matter how embarrassing they are. I think like just being able to embrace not like the cringiest parts of you. It's the whole reason that the editor of my show exists and is so involved, because sometimes it's better to, it's like, would you rather cut all the embarrassing parts of your show, or would you rather embrace them and emphasize them and let other people know, yeah, I am fucking it up. I do sound weird. This is cringe and we should all laugh at it. Like when I was listening back through the discography today, it just occurred to me again, every time I listen to That Power at the end of camp, I just think about like how much that song like low-key changed me. I used to see people say stuff like that, like this song literally saved my life. It changed me. It changed my whole. And it's like I used to be like, dude, that's so fucking cringe. And I literally felt that today as a 28-year-old listening to That Power when he's talking about having a crush on this girl and him telling her, and then her telling other people about it, and then him being embarrassed about it, and then like cutting out the middleman and just being like, I'm just gonna let everybody see all of it. And I was like, this motherfucker's talking, bro.
Yeah.
Like it's just like a really beautiful, vulnerable thing.
And that's just beautiful when you think about the artistry of it all, and like making art your playground and being able to be sort of self-sacrificial in that way. And the ability to shed the childishness of the Childish Gambino and use it as a, I guess, teaching point in hindsight, in being able to be confident that this is the right choice to change and become someone new, and everyone can follow my story. Look at what all I did, and look at how foolish I looked. We are all foolish, but it's okay. It's okay to be silly. It's okay to change your perspective and have growth. I think that, yeah, that could easily be tied into a theme in this project as well.
Yeah. And the reason why Tyler hasn't been canceled, obviously, because like part one is because cancel culture is
they
real.
try.
Yeah, but like, or just like is because whatever. But like, I don't want to even frame it that way. But the idea of like, the best way to combat that is to show your growth, not to defend yourself, not to go, nuh-uh, that wasn't bad, nuh-uh, that's actually good what I said, like it's to show your growth. Like Hassan Minaj had this bit about like therapy of just like therapy should be like a haircut. It's not your job to go, I got a haircut, look at me. It's your job to like for other people to see you and go, man, that guy got a haircut. He looks good. So like I think this album is just showing the growth and like the idea of, for me, Childish Gambino, what that represents is there are a lot of kids like when I was a kid, like there are a lot of people who are like have want to express themselves, want to express beauty, want to show off their talents, and maybe like who are curious, who love to have fun, who love to play, all that stuff. But there's the real world gets in the way of just like, I want to be an actor, I want to be like a comedian, I want to be a director, all that stuff. But then you're like, no, I should probably go into like this field because it makes money and such.
Or I got to pay rent and classes cost more than I can afford.
But Childish Gambino to me represents like that side of you who believes in yourself and that side of you who like has this like, it's that actually manifest in real life, basically, I think. So like Donald Glover is Childish Gambino, but Childish like, but now when he's 40 years old, Childish Gambino is now successfully integrated into Donald Glover because we've seen the proof and we've seen the manifestation and we've seen the growth. So he can now say goodbye to Childish Gambino, because he's just Donald Glover now, and like that's part of it. So
like you said, he's cracked the code. Like, I think it was during the internet era where he was working on the screenplay and doing the music. I think in the interviews he was talking about how he'd set up the house to where like each room was like a different creative play space, and just the ability, I think that's like, as creatives, what we strive for is be able to like follow whatever whim that we have. Like, okay, right now as the editor, I'm at the editing bay. I've stepped up, I've stretched, I've taken a little break, and the microphone's right here for a verse. It's like that ability to play, I think, is a beautiful thing to take away from Childish Gambino and to incorporate for ourselves to be, not to be the Donald Glover, but it's still like a North Star in a way, and try to cultivate your art and your output in the best way that suits you. I think that's a huge takeaway from his trajectory and career.
Yeah, and I think as you get older, what happens is like young people. Oh my God, I hate saying young people, but young people, what they do is what you just described with the Because Internet experience. It's external output, right? It's like, let's get all these people in these different rooms, and externally we're going to create. And as you get older, you don't actually spend as much time externally. You're spending a lot of time internally. So then it's a reason why a lot of the best creatives either retire early or die early, is because they just go to the inside and they're like, I can't get this stuff out anymore, so I'm just going to implode. And so what's cool about Childish Gambino / Donald Glover is that he went internal, and then he found creativity internally, and is like, he's not relying on external outcomes to determine the success of his internal journey. Whereas other artists, it's like, if the outside doesn't accept it for what I wanted it to be, then it really does harm your ability to continue to be internally kind of searching. So Tyler kind of says like, I don't have to worry about my old tweets because I'm already on my internal journey. So fuck you if you don't like my old tweets. I'll read them out loud now. It doesn't fucking matter. Right. Whereas other artists might be like, oh shit, I might lose my deal. I might lose this. I might lose that. Da, 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 da. And I'm still looking for external validations to validate my creative space. And therefore there's too much to lose, and Childish right now is saying to us, I'm retiring because I don't have to do anything with this moniker anymore. Because like you said, Andrew, Childish is now really part of Donald Glover. Like, it is the same person. And every so often, he will come out and say something, because we all have multiple versions of ourselves that will come out, like Deryk, right? Like you're saying, like, you like it when it's funny and fun, but I'm sure there's moments where you're not funny and fun. That doesn't make you not funny. It just makes you a person that has moments that are not always funny. And when you're not being funny, you might not record that podcast, right? But you're still living that podcast. You know what I mean? So I think that's where he's, again, really cool versus some of the other kind of fake nerds out there.
Yeah, and there are. It's funny that you mentioned that, because it's funny because there are sadder episodes of the podcast that exist. It's just yeah, I know it's terrible. Well, the good news is none of my YouTube audience, frankly, care enough to go back and listen to them, so I'm all in the clear. It's just really funny how that's just like an experience that you get when you have like a growing audience. It's like there are a lot of people that are they love the content and they crave more and they want more, and you're like, it's there. Like it's literally right there. You just have to like scroll a little bit. They're like, no, we want the new stuff. And I'm like, dude, it's literally new to you. But like, you don't bother, people don't bother to do that. And that's part of the discourse that like bothered me about this Kendrick rollout. And it's like, it's not really about me. It's nothing to do with me. And it doesn't actually upset me, like, realistically, but it's just, I'm trying not to go on like a whole pretentious artist rant. But as somebody that makes stuff, the idea of making something and then people being like, okay, cool, but like, what's next? It's like, that's crazy to me. Like, people won't appreciate something for 5 minutes because it's like not exactly what they wanted, or because somebody told them that they should be expecting more. And it's just like, damn, dude, why aren't these 44 minutes of these 12 tracks good enough? And sometimes I can't help but wonder, like, I'm curious what you guys think about it. I'm fascinated to hear about it after I take like a really well-deserved pee. What's up with releasing 2 albums in a year when Childish Gambino could have just as easily released a couple singles that he planned on performing on the tour and just waited until the actual movie, if there is one, to come out to release the soundtrack? Why release 2 albums in 1 year if one of them is supposed to be accompanied by something else that we don't know if it's real or not, and the other one is actually kind of a real album? Ponder that. I have to be.
Okay, so to that point, Childish did an interview with Zane Lowe, and he said something that Tina Fey used to say to him, like, welcome to what the big times used to be. The story about Seinfeld, like, the crazy thing about that is, like, season 2 of Seinfeld, it was at risk of being canceled because it pulled in 25 million of audience members for an episode of Seinfeld. And they're like, flop. They got to pick it up. Otherwise, like, and then like, we're talking about like Donald used to live before the internet, and now we're living in the almost like the 8th wave of like internet generations of just like things move so fast, and it like multiplies how like quickly things like information that's disseminated, like how back in, there was Bill O'Reilly and he was the worst guy, and now we got like the literal like demons, like we have to fucking
Nick
deal
Fuentes
with
types.
Yeah. We have to deal with that shit. Yeah.
Can I just quickly jump in here, because it's funny you said, but now we're living in the internet. And after the election, I deleted Twitter because I was like, I just don't want to be flooded with this. And I was a Twitter like fanatic, like I was addicted to Twitter. And ever since I deleted it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can spend my time doing other things. So we actually don't live in the internet. We report, we snitch, we compare, but the living still happens in real life, in real time. And I think that's where it's really cool with this, again, project, is that like, he's reminding us that like, hey, while I did frame one of the biggest albums of the 2010s under the guise of because the internet and kind of forecasting what was going to happen, he actually goes away and lives life, develops this amazing family, more creative spaces, and then he'll come back and report it through this album and this maybe movie, and then goes back and lives his life outside of the internet, So that has, as much as it feels like everything happens through this online kind of exchange, you can still cut off the middleman and just be yourself. in the real world, you know?
And go to a city council museum or city council meetings to report that a museum might be closing and like advocate for that because you're living that life with your family and it's a valuable part of your lived existence.
Yes.
And not online.
Yes.
This is like just like a sprawling all over the place episode, but like the idea of, he said, because the internet, like people don't buy albums anymore. It's like charging money for smelling the bread in the bakery. And like this was supposed to be the advertisement for the live show in a way.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is supposed to be, so I think that was like probably more than the movie. That was like the thing. By creating this album, he's creating an experience for you to listen to. The first listen is like an experience, but then afterwards, this is supposed to supplement your soundtrack, your life, you know, more so than be the thing. I think what he was trying to do was have this be an advertisement for the experience of togetherness in a stadium. But unfortunately that got like, you know, postponed. So now we have to like use it. Like ideally, I think we're supposed to like use this to soundtrack our experiences, not the album to be the experience only, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's where I'm at. Yeah.
Yeah.
Use it in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And yeah, because like the movie takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, but we're already living in the new world. The world now is different from then. And also the world now has literal apocalypse happening in other parts of the world, you know, and like in America, like it's like the end times in a lot of ways. And like his music is all about like, how do we live in the end times? How do you pass on love in the end times? How do we keep going on pretending that everything's okay when, you know, climate change is ruining our planet and shit? You know, like how is it even responsible to like start a family, you know, in this age when you're having them inherit so much awful negativity and such? And I think he's just really trying his best. I think he's just like trying to model healthy masculinity. He's trying to like remove as many of the external things that bugged him so much that like really like people's approval or like people approving him in that way, when it's just like, bro, the earth is on fire, bro. I need to take care of my family. I think that's it. You know, I think to answer Derek's question, as like, I don't think he gives a fuck. I don't think, because nobody gives a fuck is what he's positing in the album. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, I landed the plane. So like I was worried I wouldn't land the plane, but I landed the plane. So yeah. Let's talk about some highlight songs. What's a highlight song for you, Deryk?
Well, no, I want to know, what do you got? Okay, like all right. I'm not taking over your show, I promise. I'm curious to know what you all like so much about this album, because it's not a bad album, but to me, I compare it to other Childish Gambino albums. I'm like, it's all right, you know?
I think I'm closer to you in that camp, but no pun intended. I think I'm closer
I was like, that was good. Wow.
only because it felt so wedged between all of the other musical moments that I did not latch on to it. I think I said this on the Schoolboy Q episode, but I was not ready for this experience. But I also resonate with thinking about artists in relation to themselves. And when you think about your Because of the Internet and your Awaken My Loves, those felt like such huge moments. This really just feels like the curtains are slowly closing. They're curtaining. Theater nerds, y'all could take that. But are we doing highlights, or are we?
Yeah, let's do highlights.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, highlights, please.
Can I hop in? Can I do a highlight?
Please.
Go for it.
As I started to dig in and really let the music seep in, the song for me that I think is my favorite upon these listens, I do plan to go back, is No Excuses. No Excuses is so expansive. It's almost 8 minutes long. I love things that push the envelope and subvert expectations. I don't think that we were thinking of Childish Gambino's last album of having this kind of free-flowing sort of jazz epic song on it. And then the way that his vocals are floating and the refrain of "you don't have to do X anymore," it feels very melancholic. And like just thinking about it, I want to tear up. I want to have this moment to myself where I think about my past and think about all of my relationships and ties. And this song allows me to go on that journey. I love the Kamasi Washington of it all. I love this Sade execution. This is like, I hear her influence throughout this entire track. This is, I'm even though this album is not one of my, I don't know if it's my top 2 or 3. I do think that this song might be one of my favorite Childish Gambino songs of all time. It's there's some sort of liberation in it. There's some forgiveness in it. It allows you to kind of imprint whatever you want to on it, but it's such a hearty track, and the highest praises to him, Ludwig, the entire team on being able to make that track happen. So
I'm
yeah,
so
no
glad
excuses.
that you brought that one up. I was literally doing that earlier. It's one of those tracks where, like, for me, it's definitely like a top 3 track between. It made me so happy when that was the first one you brought up. I was like, I don't know what this dude's about. He's probably gonna bring up one of these tracks that I actually hate, and I'm gonna have to like find a way to weasel out of this show. No Excuses, great song, obviously. Like Lithonia, incredible highlight. Unfortunately, I feel like this is one of those situations, you all tell me if I'm wrong, where it's like you hear a lead single from an album and you're like, wow, this song is incredible. I hope it's not one of the best songs on the album. And then you listen to the album and you're like, it might be the best song on the album. I think there are like no flaws with Lithonia at all, and the accompanying music video was awesome. No Excuses was like such a journey for me. I think that 7-minute runtime, sometimes you see a track like that on an album and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I want to get into it. But for me, especially revisiting it today, I was just extremely impressed with it. I spent hours talking about Yoshinoya, classic, banger, Drake diss, we love, that people love, just a all around good song, good lyrics, and it felt like classic Childish Gambino. And the other highlight that I had was actually Dadvocate, even though I like kind of flippantly brought it up earlier. Wow. I actually love that song. I actually think it's a great song. But I think that's just like a product of me. Like, I'm a married man, I'm getting older, thinking about starting a family. I think it's sweet. I think it's a really sweet song.
Can I just quickly mention, with No Excuses, Deryk, I think Childish is talking to you on this album, on this song. He's saying, like, you don't have to play pretend I'm not young anymore. You don't have to count to 10. I don't run anymore. He's saying, like, you don't have to pretend like I'm the person or the artist that, you know, where you like compare all of the different albums. I'm not the guy that did Because of the Internet or did anything else. Like, I'm this new person because I am older, I'm wiser, I'm slower, I'm cooler, I'm nerdier, I'm whatever. So it's almost like kind of giving himself like an excuse or a reason to justify your consumption of this album now. And I agree. Like, I think musically, like that record is like so beautiful. And I think the big kind of overall highlight for me on this album is of all the artists, Childish is one of the best at layering music, layering sounds without being like, hey, this is me. Like remember my Schoolboy Q? Like, I don't like when he cuts it sometimes. Childish is like so good at just putting these songs, these textures together. And this is a really cool way because it just breathes and it pulls, it pushes, it creates, it recreates. It stays true. It allows originality. Like, it just does so much that you need more than 7 minutes, to be honest, to really like get it done. So it's a huge highlight for me too.
Andrew, where are you at on No Excuses?
I think it's great. I think it's a really good conclusion to the Ludwig Childish experiment, basically, like a really good finale to that. I think that's a really, I think that's really sick. And just like, look how far we come. Look, I was scoring Oppenheimer. Like I was doing a fake Batman score for Community, and now I'm scoring Oppenheimer. You know, just like, and hey, we came. Let's come together one last time to like really just like make something great. And I think yeah, and I think it's also great because it's in this album that's like so for the fans, and so you could easily make it so like super pandering and super just like, but he's making art and he's trying things he hasn't tried before. I'd say this and Lithonia is like him doing something new, like him doing like and it's also just stunting. By the way, I could do Sade. By the way, I could do Weezer. You know, by the way, I could do the indie rock that I loved and was paying homage to in Cul-de-sac all the time. You know, I could do that now.
I think that's also why I keep saying that this feels like just like dancing around the campfire, because we got to see Childish Gambino be so good at pushing the envelope on himself. Once again, back to Deryk's, comparing him to himself, like the Awaken My Love, even though this is the closer, let me just sprinkle in a few extra genres that I didn't really lean into, but if I really got in my bag, I could tear this shit up too.
Yes.
Right.
Lithonia shows to me that like he unfortunately he gets compared to other rappers, but I don't think that rapping, like we were talking about like his skill set, I don't think, although he's so good, I don't think that rapping is really what his calling is or what he's meant to do. It's just a space that in the early to mid 2000s, like if you're gonna do anything that was gonna be cool, like you had to rap. So he's just like, all right, fuck it, like I'm just gonna rap. And that's why a lot of the raps are so like egregious now.
Yeah, and they're like very clearly early on they were like very Lil Wayne inspired. As somebody that's a full-time Lil Wayne glazer growing up, I was just like, this guy is clearly doing his best Lil Wayne impression. And it's funny, he even said in camp, he's like, why does every black rapper gotta act? So it's like he's like, this is just what I'm supposed to do, and I mean I can, so I might as well. And I kind of appreciate him kind of stepping away from that. Let me ask you all this, and I promise this is not my podcast. I'm just curious. When you think about Bando Stone, you think about his other albums, what Childish Gambino project, what mainstream one, is it better than? Is it better than Awaken My Love? Is it better than Kawhi? Is it better than Adam Vista? Like, I'm especially curious about you, Andrew, because you clearly love the album.
I think
what album is it better than?
I'm gonna quickly hop in and say that this is, to me, sonically, this is closest to Stone Mountain and Kawhi, and I think this is I think it's better because that was more of like a mixtape approach. Just kind of, I'm gonna put this out on Dat Piff, you know. This kind of adds that studio pristine and that studio sheen. So I'm going to at least say this is better than that effort, but I don't even know if you can call those albums. So that's debatable.
Yeah, I wouldn't say this is better than those. I would just say that this does showcase what he does best. Like this does showcase what he does really well. And he doesn't do Awaken My Love in this album, but he does pop, he does rap, he does like, which is why it's like, I imagine also so hard to like kind of pin it down as like, what is this even, you know? It's
well, like what songs on this album do you think he's like showing his best version of himself? Like what stands out to you? Like, oh, I've never seen or heard anything like this before.
Well, Lithonia for me is like one, it's like, you put that against, I mean, literally anyone's best 5 songs. And I think it can creep into any artist's top 5. Like, it is such an amazing song. I personally, I really, 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 really like Real Love.
I do.
I think it's a very sincere version of what a lot of artists will do, but a lot of artists that will do that type of song will kind of almost hold it back too. It's almost like they have to add a little griminess to it. This feels very much like Real Love. Like it's very fresh, very clean, very spring-like and airy. And it is not trying to be love. It just is love. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think, again, I think that is top tier artistry when you're not trying to do something, you just are, right? You take care. You don't Scorpion, you take care. You know, you're just being who you are as an artist. So I think those 2 moments for me are top tier compared to anything else he's done.
Yeah, Real Love is one of my highlights. I really love romantic, sappy, Childish Gambino. I think that's the bag I really like from him in this album. As this and Steph's Beach, like especially this idea of hope you find that real love, real love is this idea to his is a message to his audience too. Like it's
Yes.
I at the end of camp I was rejected and I was put into the cold and I stayed on the bus and I like then got depressed because of the internet, blah blah blah, like all that stuff. And then here he's like, hey, guess what? I found it, you know, and I hope you find it too. And it this is like a song me and like my girlfriend love. I think it's like so like sweet and it's so like I felt the encouragement before and I felt the how it feels during, you know, I felt during the consummation and the reciprocal passing back and forth of love and affection and care. And then like Steph's Beach, I think is
Steps Beach felt like very kawaii to me. I'm trying to figure out why I like Steps Beach and why I don't like Real Love. But it's not that I don't like the content of Real Love. It's more of like what I wrote here was, what is this genre? Teen Titans Go sounds like a Cartoon Network bop. Sounds like a parody song. Sounds like a parody song made for an outro to an Atlanta episode.
It sounds like fake Justin Bieber, like, you know,
exactly. It sounds like he's supposed to be playing a pop star character in this movie, and like this is a fake song that they made for this pop star character. He was like, let me sprinkle in a real, let me sprinkle in a little bit of authenticity. It's coming from a real place, but this is clearly for a character that is not Donald Glover or Childish Gambino as the character for this movie. And I think that like just the undertone of the fact that like this is created as a soundtrack for this movie that doesn't exist really, really like I try not to let it take away from my experience, but it's just hard not to think when I have a song that I'm struggling to understand like why it exists or what the message is. I'm like, oh, this is one of those cuts that makes a lot of sense when we have a movie with it. Mm-hmm. And there were a couple of tracks like that, like Got to Be, for example. I'm like,
I could see this like scoring something, you know?
Exactly. Like it sounds like a score for something. And I'm like, man, I just wish I had more context for that, you know? But
that song though, I mean, Childish is one of his best skill set is breathing. He's he's one of the best breather on tracks. And on this song, on Got to Be, like the and that sample, like that Prodigy, like just to start Firestarter. Like that shit is like, I mean, in that era, it was like the greatest thing of all time. So for me, I get like how that would be more amplified with the movie and everything, but just to have the beginning part of Got to Be and then it flip into this crazy rave is wild to me, and I love it.
I don't. Oh, and you love it.
I love.
Are we in lowlights?
Okay, I'm just glad I'm not alone. Like, what did you guys not like about this? Because okay, serious question. Like, I need everybody's take on this before we like wrap this up, whenever that is. Do y'all? I just need honest opinions on. Can You Feel Me? Please, can we?
I love this song. I think I'm a huge defender of it. You hate love, you hate joy, you hate children. Like, you know, like you hate
Stop
that.
putting your kids in your music. Please.
I think if you're gonna put your kids in your music, have them be as talented as Legend, though. You know, and there is, you know, like North is that North song is fine. You know, Blue Ivy's pretty great. Like
Adonis's
dancing in
freestyles.
Ooh. I'm your little bands.
I don't even like. I feel bad even talking about it. They're doing this. I read the lyrics for the first time today, listening to it, and I was like, "These motherfuckers are doing the alphabet throughout the whole song," and they're acting like I wouldn't know.
Sesame Street interpolation. You know, the African alphabet in Sesame Street. Wait, what do you say?
I don't like it. I don't think it's good. It just sounds. Look, make the song. Have a good time with your kid. Keep it for your legacy. Keep it off the album. Like, don't make it public.
I think that's a fair point. I think that's because like the ethics of just like having your kid on your music.
Make
like,
the song. 100%. Have fun.
I think it also. I think it plays into this Drake discourse too, like the hiding your child. Like he's like, I'm gonna put my kid at the forefront, and I don't necessarily know if that's a good choice.
No, he's a hypocrite. I don't look, I love artists and I love them as people occasionally, but like I am like quick to call out shit that I think is hypocritical. It's crazy to be like, I'm never going to show pictures of my child. I am going to put them in the song though, so everybody can critique it and tweet about it and talk about
Well,
it.
no,
Like,
it's not. It's not why they're doing that. They're doing it to make money, right? So every time someone plays it featuring Legend Glover, Legend gets a little check, right? So it's an easy way for all of these artists that are doing it. It's just about the money, right? Like
open a Bonds account.
Yeah, it's definitely for his college fund for sure. What I mean,
but
it's a great defense. But I'm telling you,
no, it's not a defense. It's the reality of capitalism, right? So it's like if you can capitalize on your kids, like nobody wants to see Childish's kids, but if you're going to listen to Childish's album and his kid happens to be on the track that you listen to, then his kid makes money. It's capitalism 101, right? So it's like, and again, they're all doing it. Like no one's doing it. Like North isn't on there because North is good. It's just like every time that someone plays Northy, then Northy gets a little check.
Gives a little kickback.
You can just put $1 million in their birthday card, like you're rich. Like this whole like, oh, we did it so the royalties and the residuals of this song would pay them for the rest of their life. Like you're rich.
No,
just
but
give the kid the money.
No, but rich people get rich by taking money off of poor people. You don't get rich by paying your kid $1 million. You get rich by getting other people to pay your kid $1 every time they listen to it that can't afford to get rid of that dollar, right? So I think that's capitalism. Now you want to talk about? We're going to go into it because
I hear you. Is this song good?
Yes. I think the song. That's now, one of my highlights. Yeah,
Derek, you got me riled up now. So now it's like we're going to talk about low light. Yoshinoya is a low light because he's doing this fake ass, boring ass Drake diss that is not a good Drake diss. Like we've already had the best Drake diss, so for him to waste time dissing Drake, like if you're gonna diss Drake, but don't do this little like cutesy. Except for that one bar, the like you be fucking these hoes, I'll be fucking my wife. Like that's like bar. That's a bar of all bars. Probably the best lyric on the album, but the actual song itself, like. For us to know that he's trying to get into this braggadocious, that's the hypocritical part, right? It's like he's saying to us, hey, I am Donald Glover and Childish, but now he's going to go into this fake arena that he's never wanted to be in or been able to, I guess, excel in, and then try to battle someone who's being destroyed by the king of all rappers, Kendrick Lamar. Like it is kind of beating a dead horse.
I feel like Yoshinoya,
it was good for the channel.
I think Yoshinoya works better like some years ago. I don't think it particularly thematically fits on this album. I think this exists in a world prior to the Drake-Kendrick beef, and I hate contextualizing everything adjacent to that, but I think that matters because this doesn't have that, and you guys kind of said it, that fiery conviction that beef had, but I think sans that beef, this is Yoshinoya's kind of hitting.
He sounds good. He sounds really good. It's like a very confident flow. I think what he does well is he stunts his joy. He stunts his happiness, and he stunts more that he occasionally stunts his wealth because he has that too. But he's stunting his joy. Like you fucking these hoes, I'm fucking my wife, and like the way he talks about talk my shit. It's all about his joy. It's all about like love. It's all about that. And like I think Can You Feel Me is stunting his joy. It's stunting the reciprocal love of his child. I think, which is like when Drake puts his child on the thing, it's like, oh, you did that because Pusha T did that song, and then you have to like kind of save face a bit. Where this is like Yoshinoya, I'm sorry, I'm just like a little I'm a little riled. I'm like just okay.
He's like, you hate that song with his kid on it. I thought it was sweet. No, I understand. Look, I'm not saying that the idea is bad. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have done it. I'm just saying that I shouldn't have heard it. That's my thing. No, I'm not saying that like, sonically it's terrible. I'm just saying like, it kind of just makes me like it would be, if Cardi B's rapping and then or she's like culture and then her kid pops on a song. I'm like, what are we doing? Like just take your kid to work day. Like it's if you want him to show up in a movie, that's one thing. I just feel like music is kind of judged. Though? So
yeah, that's a question. Like why is the framing of a kid in the movie okay, but not on the album?
So it also depends on the age. I think that Legend is too young to be getting judged by people like Derapy and all of us on this podcast right now. Like, it just feels odd. Like, I think that, so Jaden Smith showing up in a Will Smith movie playing his son makes more sense to me because, like, it feels more real in a way, and Jaden Smith actually ended up. I guess it kind of depends on the context, because for me, this is again in the middle of a maybe soundtrack, maybe album, and then in the midst of this, it's like here's this really. How am I supposed to let it go? It's the title
Use
of
your
the
imagination.
release the movie. Why are you making a trailer for a movie with no release date? I'm sorry.
Okay, question for you, Deryk. Let's say the movie does come out. Okay, I know it's probably not gonna, but let's say it comes out, and then in the movie, Legend is playing Childish's son, and there's a beautiful scene where they like kind of interact, and this is like the soundtrack to that scene. Do you then go back and say,
I take back everything I said?
Okay,
Wow.
all right. So then you think the song is
context is everything.
Context is everything. It matters.
So you think
I have to go based on what's here.
So you think the song's actually good, but you're missing the context, so you're feeling like it should be placed here.
Honestly, I don't want to hear it anyways. But what I'm saying is, it makes more sense if there's a movie and the scene is him and his son in the movie, and they're actually performing the songs to each other. It's sweet. It makes sense, and it makes sense that it's on the soundtrack. But right now, I'm just like, why'd your kid on the album? You know, I don't know.
I just want to shout out. I want to shout out my case for this song. Is a line, "Something was wrong with you, I didn't know. Tears in my eyes, boys was telling me lies. Daddy took me to the side, told me it was okay to cry. I felt so helpless inside."
That's the new world, right, Andrew? Sorry to cut you off.
No,
I feel like that's the new world of it, right? Breaking down this sort of generational masculinity, the toxicity, being able to showcase to your son that it's okay to be vulnerable. Didn't mean to step on your point, but I feel like that thematically it fits right within the album. Sonically, we can debate it. That's fine, but I think it fits. I think it fits on the album.
But you know what? Also, if it was so, for example, the violence off Atavista also has this son in it. Notice how I didn't even think about it, didn't bring it up, because the song's just better, right? Are you going to tell me that the violence isn't better than the song?
No.
Maybe
I'm not thinking that way. I'm trying to think.
Okay,
like,
all right.
I'm not trying to. I think it's like the thing is, you're approaching it from the point of, I listened to the entire discography and then I listened to this. You know, I'm trying to like glean everything that's what this album is trying to tell me and the beauty of it. You know, like I think, and that line to me is like, the idea that when I was growing up, I went through like emotional like turmoil and abuse and all that stuff that my parents didn't know about. You know, my parents didn't know about till I was like an adult, and like I didn't know how to tell them, right? And then this song is just like, so like when I think like, even though he postures himself as sensitive and loving and all that, like Donald himself, sensitive, loving, all that stuff, there was a moment where he didn't know his son was going through it. He didn't know that was happening to him. And then Donald offered Legend advice on like how it's okay to express yourself. But then at the end, he says, I felt so helpless inside, you know, just like I'm still a child too. And then it's also the idea of the father, Donald Glover Sr., who passed away, and then Legend seeing his dad cry about that. Like, I think that's so valuable. I think that if you're going to, obviously there are the ethics of putting a kid on a song, and like it could be debatable of like if you like it as something you want to listen to, but I think as an expression of healthy masculinity, as an expression of reciprocal love, and an expression of growth, and expression of your own flaws, I think it's very beautiful. I think it's very necessary too.
Yeah, this is why it's so cool to have the two of you to have this conversation, because because you're both right? Like Andrew, you're like, you know, I listened to this and I created like a personal kind of relationship to this song given my own experience. And Deryk, because we didn't do the work that you did, right? Like, because you actually went through the whole musical journey of Childish, you were actually well positioned to say like, okay, y'all, like there's this thing, but he already did this thing somewhere else that maybe was done in a more exploratory or artistic way. So why am I going to minimize or sacrifice the better version of this meal for this meal that's in front of me right now? Like, you're like, I've tasted better. right? Is that what you're trying to say? Like,
Yeah,
these things better?
yeah, kind of in a way. It was like so. It would be like if Drake had his kid on another song, or Kanye has his kid on another song,
which
it's
he
like,
does, which they probably will.
does.
That probably will happen.
and I will appreciate it even less than I did the first time because it's like, whose career is this? Like what are we doing? It's take your kid to work day, and it's one thing if they're going to be in a whole movie and they actually are going to be like a pivotal part of it. I don't know that yet, and I'm referring to like Will Smith and his kid. But if this movie ever comes out, which again I'm leading no, and him and his kid are in the scene and they're doing the song, I'd be like, oh, okay, well now it makes more sense in the context. But every time I look at the lyrics and I just see how the alphabet is laid out throughout the song, it just annoys me. Like looking at all these letters, I'm like, oh, he's doing this because his kid's on the song, because it's a kid's song, and it's just not what I asked for. But I also understand that it's okay. It's okay that the song resonates with some people because it should. And it's okay for me to see the alphabet placed throughout a song and be like, that's stupid.
I would argue that it's. I would argue that's not okay. Actually, that you think it's stupid. I'm just kidding.
well, like so. I'm also really like grateful for the discussion that we're having because I think that this is like extremely important on the internet in general. It's something that like I'm one of the proudest things. One of the things that I'm most proud of when it comes to my channel and the community and the discourse that surrounds my channel is like people can talk about music that they like or dislike and discuss that with each other without it being like, well, you're fucking stupid if you don't think this song is the greatest. Yeah. And it's like, that's why I was, even though in the moment when I got your Instagram message, like, I think it's one of the best albums of the year, I was like, I'm not ready to engage with this right now. I'm glad that we are able to do it this way and totally. It's still fine because I feel like the discourse around art has just gotten way too unnecessarily contentious for no reason. Like,
I did say you hate children and you hate joy and stuff.
Yeah, but like I recognize that. I recognize that as a joke, and some people actually wouldn't. Like there are some people out there that are like living and breathing and like paying taxes and are responsible for other human beings, and they are legitimately furious that like I don't want to listen to Drake anymore, and I just think that's pathetic. Like
some
people are allowed
out there living it.
People are allowed to like just not like the music that you like, and it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was just gonna say some people are out there living and breathing, thinking that someone saying I was let down or I'm letting you down means that they don't deserve a Super Bowl spot. But I'm not Lil Wayne, so.
Okay, any more lowlights you want to just like throw out? I think for me, like lowlight wise, I think what's it called? Got to Be and A Place Where Love Goes is just more. I think they hit anyways in spite of the challenges, but I just think they don't reach its full potential. Like I think Got to Be could have like the hit as hard as a great JPEG Mafia song with the unorthodox mixing. It just doesn't go there.
See, I think Got to Be shouldn't have been what it was. And that's why it's a low light for me, because I feel like we get enough of that kind of abrasive stuff elsewhere, especially within the first track and Lithonia and a couple of other spots. I wanted Got to Be to continue on that opening kind of vibe. It just felt so smooth and so good. I was like, oh, I need this warm hug. And then we're just brash and like hitting me over the face with the distortion. And I'm like, no, not right now, man. Let's keep it cozy.
Yeah.
I love it.
I think the flaw of the album is just like the ADHD nature of it, of just like because the internet really works because it's thematic. It is like kind of like collagey and like modular.
It's like linear.
Yeah, also. But it's like thematically it's pretty consistent, and then Awaken My Love is very sonically consistent, I would say. You know, it's like you know, this is like all over the place. This is like trying to do a lot. And I think, I think Final Church is a better finale for Childish Gambino. Like, you know, like, of course, it's one of the greatest songs he's ever done. Like, but A Place Where Love Goes is good, but like, I think the choir's too compressed. It could and you got Max Martin, and you got like, oh, this is gonna be huge and massive and stadium status, and just like barely misses it. I think that's my take on those two songs. Yeah.
It's literally similarly to what I wrote for A Place Where Love Goes. Was not my favorite Gambino closer. Not bad, just not hitting like Stand Tall or Final Church or That Power or Life the Biggest Troll. It's like we know that know that you're capable of doing this. And it's just one of those things like, is this above par, on par, below par? For me, I'm like, I know you know how to close an album. And this isn't, it's just not it to me. Do you guys have like ratings or rankings in mind for this album? I'm curious.
Before we do that, any stray observation? Yeah, any
stray observation? The Kesha interpolation on We Are God.
Is that the Kesha?
We are. That's very much we are who we are.
Oh my God. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, go back and listen to We Are God. That's a Kesha interpolation, whether meant or subconsciously. I'm just like, okay, we've done some pop stuff on this album, so it's not out of pocket to reference older pop track and make it ethereal and kind of wandering. I kind of like it.
Another observation is I like the I don't want to bring up the movie, that's not gonna happen, but I like the little snippets from the movie you get kind of sprinkled throughout the album, especially when they're like, oh, well, what can you do? And he's like, oh, I could sing. It's just like, you're useless, like that shit is like, I want to see this movie, I want to see this scene where like they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive the apocalypse. And he's just like, I'm a singer. So that for me was like a pretty fun moment. And then The Advocate, I mean, Deryk, you brought that up that as one of your highlights. Like The Advocate, I think, is one of the coolest songs on this album too.
Yeah.
For me,
like, that's so sick.
I guess I'm the lone one on that. I don't want to go back to Lowlights, but for me, as a stray observation, I think it is too simplistic overall. I think I hear each track individually. It doesn't feel hefty. It feels, I don't know, like the first track that would have been written for this project, and something like that. We're just getting the ball rolling on songwriting. It doesn't hold up to all of the other ones for me, but I'm not hating on y'all. I'm not hating on y'all for liking it.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on y'all. I'm hating on it.
Yeah, you hate Legend Glover. Is it?
I hate babies. I don't like that.
I'm just kidding. I think that the line I really like from Dadvocate is, "It ain't safe being a woman, and it's hard to be a man." Is the thing it does well. This album does well. Is it's very anti-incel, anti-manosphere in a really awesome way. I think, and that shows his growth of. There was
a Fresh and Fit disc, which I love.
Yeah, Fresh and Fit, like just like Wear My Hug, all that shit. There's a little like, and the thing they don't obviously the thing that incels don't understand is, the worst fear of a man is like getting rejected. The worst fear of a woman is like being murdered and shit. So it's like, but it's also addressing the pain of like men and the difficulty being a man and stuff like that. So, and this is a very like very non-scoldy of just like, hey, I used to feel how you feel, but there's a more of a call-in approach to like kind of I don't think scolding works. I don't think it works, because we've seen with the election and stuff. I don't think that works very well. Let's go through ratings. Final thoughts and ratings. I'm taking over the podcast now. The ways it works is we rate this album out of 10. The fun metric at the end. How would you like to rate this?
Am I going first?
You go first. Yeah.
Okay. It's better than I remembered.
Yeah.
The album. It's I like to hold people to the standard that they possibly hold themselves. So I don't look at it as like this standalone thing. I compare it to other Childish Gambino projects. That's just my feeling. And even though it doesn't have like the same impact to me, it's not bad. It's not the first time he's done an album that's like been accompanied by something else. But I just think that it wasn't executed quite as well, because with that album we had a screenplay, and with this album we have just this. So I'm feeling like a light 6 derps out of 10, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Okay, I go next. I think what you're saying is exactly right. Like it's, he clearly had a vision for this, and unfortunately for different circumstances, we haven't seen the entire vision yet. But I think within this, there's clearly a visionary, and I appreciate the attempt to be a person that's going to go out with his artistic kind of instincts still being that guiding light. It's not a perfect album, but it's a pretty good album. I'm gonna give it 8.3 million invested in Legend Glover's scholarship fund out of 10.
Nice. I'll hop in third seat. I think there's a lot going on this project. I think it's worth giving a lot of listens to really kind of embed yourself in what's going on. Andrew said there's some ADHD-ness going on here. I think you could have maybe broken a lot of these tracks out into either like 2 or 3 EPs or something like that. But I appreciate the effort and pushing the sound one last time. For me, in the realm of Childish Gambino projects, I don't think it's at the highest, but it's not a bad effort. I'm gonna give this 7. Hey, bro, the party's over. Out of 10.
Get the fuck out of my house.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, I think it's I think the trouble with this album is obviously he didn't get to execute his full vision in the way he really wanted to. And I think it's because of the new world we live in. Like, it's like really hard to execute. Like the idea of like, oh, maybe the movie might not come out because it's not going to make money. He always said with Atlanta, like the first meeting of Atlanta, like the FX studio is like, I'm going to make you money, and it's really like, I don't think that, like, I'm concerned of like, oh, it might not make money in theaters if it just came out. So I think that's unfortunate, but I think as a goodbye to Childish Gambino, like this part of Donald Glover, I'm pretty happy with it. I really like the breadth of his talent. I really like the breadth of his talent. I really like how it soundtracks my life and my growth, and my relationships and my family and how I want to be. And like, it still operates as a North Star in that way. I think, and I'm looking forward to it continuing to soundtrack my life. I'm actually happy we don't have to like analyze it anymore, and just like, cause it's like it's a loop of just like, but there's no movie. How can you get it? Like, just like, it just kind of like, it just, I'm really just looking forward to just like enjoying cruising on a drive or like enjoying, step speech while I'm like holding my partner's hand or something like that. That's really, and like, this idea of, and I'm not there yet. I'm not where he is, I'm not where he is. So there's still something aspirational to this album, and there's still like there's still a lot to chew on. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to give it on 10 Fab with the cannon.
In Atlanta.
I love Alma-Ray. I think she's like Baby Keem on Donda, like just like a weird ingredient.
So good.
Yeah. Shout out all the features.
Yeah. And like just like the idea of just like, while I'm here, might as well shout these folks out, like the it's great. Okay.
Except for you.
I didn't mind it. I think it's like, people who listen to Childish Gambino like go like, okay, he has something to offer, maybe, like he's already popular, but I think that's
maybe.
Okay, so let's go. So thank you so much, Deryk. Thank you so much for your kindness and like staying over a little bit. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for the the respectful disagreements along the way. Like I really appreciate smart music creators, smart content creators who are able to articulate their arguments and articulate their viewpoints in a way that's fun, breezy,
And wrong.
Yeah, that's right. So Deryk, what would you like to plug? What's out there for you?
I have a podcast. It's called Derapy. It's like therapy, but it's like you get it. It's DERAPY. Yeah, I'm on Spotify. I'm on Apple Podcast. A lot of people will just be like, "Oh, go to my YouTube. That's where all the subscribers, all the community is." But it's like, this when you mention it, it almost sounds like antithetical if I say something like, "I'm not in it for the money." But the reason why I bring up the Spotify and the Apple Podcast is because if you hate ads and you don't want to listen to the show on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify and Apple, and you can listen without any ads. I mean, you'll still get the editor breaks, but that's part of the fun of the show. I just want everybody to know that it's okay to like music that other people don't like. It's okay to hate music that other people love. It's all okay. I don't think that music is really important. It's magical. It's beautiful. It's great art, and it's beautiful that people can consume it and resonate with it the way that many people do. But this is literally, it's nothing worth disrespecting other human beings over. Okay, like the artists. And I hate to sound like a Gen Alpha, Gen Z, like one of these kids out here, but like they don't know you, little bro. Like it's okay. It's okay that people disagree with you about music, and you can still be friends. You can still have 2-hour-long conversations about how much you hate babies. It's all okay. And if you don't like something that somebody put out, you can listen to another thing that they put out. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. In the beautiful age of streaming, there's nothing stopping me from just going and listen to because of the internet after this conversation. Right. And I want everybody out there to know that this is the best way to communicate how you feel. It's not by like shooting tweets into the void. It's like having real conversations with real people. So I appreciate shows like this. I don't often do things like this, but you all seem like nice people, and it was easy and it was fun. And I think that's what everybody should lead with. If we're all just out here trying to have fun. So lean into that. Love you, music.
Yeah. What awesome. I would say this episode is on par.
Which is a good thing because our episodes are usually excellent. So if it's on par, it's pretty good.
I'll take on par. On par. On par is great.
No, I love it. Thank you so much, Deryk. You can follow the show at IBMTLTT. You can follow our Patreon. I've been meaning to watch that. We review music documentaries and musicals and like kind of like media related to musicians. You can follow Stenley at Snap a Sten, John Butts at John Butts is here, Michael at Limitaco, Otness their theme song, Megan Rika Young did our artwork, and Deryk, any final words? Like and subscribe.
Wait, hold on. Like the video.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good day. Click.